In this video we'll see how Spassky conducts a kingside Pawnstorm as white in the closed Sicilian to overcome black's counterplay and bring home the win. And we'll go deep into the main line of the Najdorf where white throws forward all the pawns on the kingside, risking everything for a double-edged game where he tries to mate black's king. Here we have an early pivotal game in the closed Sicilian between Spassky and Geller. White's attacking on the king side, black's counter-attacking on the queen side. White wants to play h3, g4 and f5, put pressure on g6. He's going to play bishop e3 and queen d2 and exchange off the dark square bishop. He will reroute his knights into the attack, open the king side as much as possible and try to deliver checkmate. Meanwhile, black will counter-attack with rook b8, b5, a5, advance the queenside pawns as far as possible to open the a, b and c files. He might play moves like b4, gain time on the knight, then a4. If allowed, he'll play a3. He can also play e6 and the typical Sicilian move d5. He's got to be careful about d5 too soon though, because it will allow e5 in response, which will block the centre in white's favour. So let's see what happened. Black went rook b8, h3, both sides execute their plans, b5, a3, an important prophylactic move. Often it's worth making one move on the side where you're defending to slow your opponent down. Now here a3 prevents black from playing a5, a4 and a3 himself. It also allows white to capture in the event black goes b4, because if we take, black recaptures, the a7 pawn will now be hanging, which forces black to spend another move playing a5 to prepare this. So black did exactly that, a5, bishop b3 developing, and b4. Now white opens the a file. You might say, why didn't Spassky just keep the queen side closed as much as possible? But the queen side's opening, and white has his rook on the a file. Black's moved his rook to a more passive square, so it makes sense. White goes knight e2, bishop b7, developing this piece, and now queen d2. The stage is set for the race. Who's going to attack faster? Rook a8. Now here Spassky played an interesting move. Rook a b1. Spassky's basically saying, I'm going to lose on the queen side, but I'm going to slow you down as much as possible. I'm going to play rook a b1, b3, and then this pawn's always going to be covered by the queen, so I've got time to play my plan of g4, f5 and knight f4. Anyway, black can proceed with queen a5. A bit of a mysterious move. What's the queen doing on this file? It's got no targets. I think a better move would have been to play something like c4 immediately, a more energetic move. And then if we capture here, our pawn on e4 is hanging, so black will open the c file very quickly. Instead black went queen a5. Now here, Spassky played b3, which is not the best move. b3 actually allows an immediate d5. When your opponent is attacking you on the flank, always counter-attack in the centre. This would force white to play e5, black could counter-attack with d4, important point, and now something like bishop takes, c takes, e takes, bishop takes, and white's lost the bishop pair. His knights are passive, they're eating granite on this pawn on d4, and so black's better here. So it would have been better for white to go g4 immediately, not playing this b3 move. Remember, if black plays b3, we can counter with c3, and we keep the queen side blocked. Anyway, Spassky went b3, rook fc8, a poor move because the black rook is not really supporting this pawn, it's not able to move because of the clamp on c4. A better move would have been d5 immediately again. Anyway, rook fc8, f5 and queen b6. Black is aimlessly moving the queen back and forth because he's achieved his dominant position on the queen side and he doesn't know how to capitalise on it. White proceeds with g4, rook a2, and now knight c1. This is a nice finesse to get the knight out of the way for the queen to come to f2. The knight can then return to e2 and go on to f4. So white plays knight c1, drive the rook back, queen f2, and queen c7. White proceeds with knight e2, and now at this point, white has the idea of threatening this pawn on f7 after takes, g5 and knight back to h7 for example. Black returns to a2, rook comes to c1 and it will stay there for pretty much the rest of the game, just holding black's counterplay in check. Black makes yet another aimless queen move, queen d8. Perhaps he's thinking that he can play e6 and then the queen will support the knight. Knight f4, queen e8 and knight g5. Now this is actually a mistake from Spassky, as you can see by the eval bar. This allows black to take over the game with knight to d4. If this knight is threatening to take on b3 with a pin on the queen, so white is forced to take it on d4. Now the knight can actually take on g4 here. We recapture, and it's a pin, and we lose our queen. So instead of recapturing, we have to go something like queen h4, threaten mate, but then bishop d4 check, and black is just up a pawn. Bit complicated, but basically you shouldn't allow this knight to come to d4, because this is the best square for this knight in the closed Sicilian. So instead of going knight g5, Spassky should have gone g5, a much better pawn move, gaining time on this knight. After knight d7 he can go h4, he's threatening h5 and h6, his pawn can take on g6 as well, opening up the f-file. Instead he went knight g5. So black did play knight d4, Spassky saw a way to carry on the attack anyway, he took on g6, black recaptured, and now white played knight d5, trying to keep this central counterplay in check. Slightly better move would have just been to take on d4, get rid of the strong knight. Anyway, black took on b3, white carried on with e5, the idea being that the knight is pinned against this f7 pawn. If the bishop takes, we just capture the knight on f6 with a double attack, so we're winning here. So what black responded by capturing on c1, bishop takes c1, Spassky has sacrificed the exchange, black captures on d5, a series of exchanges, and now queen h4. Now black is in trouble because this queen and knight have finally reached the h7 square. Black can do nothing about it. White is threatening mate in 2 with queen h7, king f8, and knight to e6 checkmate. So black is forced to give up the knight with knight f6. We take, black recaptures, queen h7, king f8. White goes knight e4, threatening this pawn and the fork on d6. Now, bear in mind, black is up an exchange and 2 pawns here. His position is actually completely winning, but it's hard to convert because his king is a little bit vulnerable and white's pieces coordinate well to hit all the weak pawns. Black goes queen e5 to defend both, bishop f4 gaining time on the queen, now black goes queen d4 check, king h1, his long-term plan might be rook takes c2 with c4 and b3, eventually promoting a passed pawn. He played queen d4, king h1, now black went wrong with rook c6. He should have gone rook d8 when white's idea of playing bishop h6 doesn't really work because bishop takes, queen takes, and the king is perfectly safe on e7. The queen is in no position to deliver checks. All the key squares are covered. White can only capture on f6, by which time black will capture on c2, and white's king is just too weak. Anyway, rook c6 allows bishop h6. Now if you take on h6, white has this extra move, queen h8 check, king e7, and knight takes f6. We actually sacrifice another piece to flush this king out. Now we're threatening queen e8 check. Now our queen's in the game. That's much more valuable than that bishop. Black goes bishop f4, we go g5 supporting the knight, threatening mate in one next move, forcing black to move his king further forward, king e6, queen e7, queen e8, king f5. Now this is a full-blown king chase. We take on f7, rook c7. Again, desperate Hail Mary, trying to give up the rook to distract the queen, which Spassky obliges. Black has 1 or 2 moves to make things happen. Unfortunately, all the key squares along the diagonal are covered. Rook c2 is too slow because it will allow the queen to come in and start delivering checks. So black captures on g5, giving the king some temporary respite, but white can go queen e7, threatening discovery, queen e3, and knight e4 check. It's great to see how the knight and queen are working together. Knights and queens form a kind of slow burn attack in chess, which is quite hard to evaluate and foresee, but they're actually more dangerous than the bishop and queen, I think. So king h5, check, bishop h6, and you can see how this rook is acting to cut off this f-file long term. Queen comes back to d7. This is the mark of a great chess player. When they make a move like this that's not even a check, especially when they had checks available on the board because they're manoeuvring their queen to the best square to deliver the coup de grace. Black goes bishop f4, knight f6 check, king g5, and after knight d5, black resigned the game because after something like queen d4, we have queen e7, let's say king h6, queen f8, and now black will be losing material on f4 because his king's so weak. So a fantastic kingside attack from Spassky, very up and down, chances for both sides, but I hope this has inspired you to play the close Sicilian to get a similar attack in your own game. Now a bit of a departure from my normal style, instead I want to go through a main line of the Najdorf to explain how to conduct the kingside attack here. The main line from this starting position goes with the plan of bishop g5, f4 and queen f3, the most active plan. Other plans are available such as f3 and bishop e3, the English attack, where we'll go g4 and h4, a bit of a slower burn. We can also go with bishop e2, the classical variation, where we castle kingside, and since it's same side castling it's a bit quieter. But the main line going for the throat is bishop g5. Black's long-term development scheme is e6, bishop e7 castles, b5, releasing the bishop. The queen will always come to c7 in conjunction with this b4 move later, and the knight will come to d7, just to tie it all together. White will always be castling queenside, black will be castling kingside, so we have a race on both sides of the board. Black goes e6, f4, bishop e7, queen f3, as I said, queen c7. This is effectively the main line of chess. This is the most reached position from the starting position from move 1. White castles, knight bd7 and g4. White starts throwing pawns down the board. Now this bishop on g5 is getting in the way a bit. We want to exchange this off for the knight, which will allow us to gain a tempo with g5, whatever black recaptures with. Then we'll be sacrificing this g5 pawn to open the g file so that rook g1 will be hitting the king after it castles. Also, once we play a5 sacrificing this pawn, we'll be able to go king b1 and the king will be much more secure. So anyway, black continues with b5. We take on f6, knight takes g5, knight d7, f5, and bishop takes g5 check. Go king b1, good square for our king. Often we play king b1 unprompted in the Sicilian, so to have it, as a response to a check is fine. Black will go knight e5, exploiting this newly made hole in the pawn structure. Now it looks like white's a pawn down. His kingside Pawnstorm is falling to pieces, but he has enough piece activity to hold quite a substantial edge. The linchpin of the plan is this pawn on e6. It's not adequately defended because we're going to go queen h5. Now the pawn is pinned against the king. Black will have to spend a move castling to unpin it. In the meantime, we'll be playing moves like taking on e6 and even thinking about bishop h3 to gang up on this pawn. Remember, whenever you're playing f5, bishop h3 is a good move to go with that because it supports this attack. So black will go bishop f6 to support this knight and this pawn, basically glue the position together. This does offer to give up a pawn with f takes e6, so we'll see what happens if white takes the gauntlet in a minute. Black can also go queen to d8 when we have the option of h4, bishop f6, take on e6. Now black castles, material is equal, and now we can go bishop h3, always a good move to defend this e6 pawn. F takes, also worth mentioning what happens if g6, we bring the queen back to e2 and then we could proceed with h5. If bishop takes, this is suicidal because the rooks will be rolling down the h-file. So black can't really go for something like h5, he hasn't got time because we'll be taking on f7 with check. We'll be bringing our knight into this juicy outpost d5, so black needs to come up with some active moves to hold the balance. It's +2, so white should be winning with this attack. Anyway, queen h5, bishop f6, f takes e6, and castles, getting out of this pin. Materials equal again. We go knight d5. Again, we can take this at our leisure. There's no need to rush. If we took now, instead of going knight d5, we'd effectively be offering queen trade. We'd have to spend a tempo retreating our queen, which is not what we want in such a sharp position. Knight d5, queen d8, and bishop h3. F takes. Now, you have a choice. You can take with the knight or the bishop. The bishop is better because this comes with check, and we want to keep this knight on the board. Ultimately, white actually can't recapture this bishop because we'll be taken on e6 with a fork. Black goes bishop h8, and now his king's in a box. We've got ideas. If black ever goes g6, we might bring our knight back to f4 and hit this g6 pawn. Rook h g1 and g6. Now, white will typically move his queen back to e2. Unfortunately, we've not got rook g6 because the knight covers it. So we bring our queen back to e2. And this position is plus 0.3, but I like white's chances. He's got a clear plan of attacking on the king side. He'll bring his knight to f3, exchange off this strong knight. Obviously he's got to worry about this bishop on e6 first. He's also got the idea of h4 as a pawn sacrifice, and h5. Meanwhile, black's counterplay is many moves off. He'll have to first play bishop e7, a5, b4, potentially sacrificing these two pawns to get the queen side rolling. So a nice king side attack for white. There's many different ways this could go, many different plans in the position. It's highly complex, but I recommend you have a further look at this and hopefully you can use it in your game.